to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today, Louis D'Souza and Amy Blackford.
This is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And we're also excited that all three of us are back on the show today. It's been a little bit off and on lately, but when we get all three of us here, we have 3 times the mental power going on.
That's right.
It's a very cool thing. And Louis is now in his new imaginary house. Is it imaginary or real? I'm not sure what this is. Is this is this a virtual house? What are we talking about here? I mean, I live in a virtual universe. You can tell that. So I'm just kind of curious. What are you living in there?
So some answer to that, Walt, is what is real and what isn't.
Yeah, right.
Good answer.
Fair point. Yes, well taken. Okay, well then I will just skip past the obvious rabbit hole and go directly to the topic of the day, which is warrior rule number 4.
Yes.
Out of some 80-odd rules that Amy has created over the years as she's tried to understand and come to terms with how this universe works, how this crazy conscious creation stuff goes. And so you got to tell us what warrior rule number 4 is so we know what we're talking about.
Yes, honor your enemies. They are your greatest teachers. And just so that people don't misunderstand, when I talk about the enemy, I'm talking about the one that exists in the mind. So when I came up with this warrior rule, it was about pretty much external circumstances, whether it's a life condition, another person, an event. It basically triggers a reaction within us. We feel like we are at war with this thing. It's the enemy. It needs to be defeated. And many times this thing outside of us, we will blame and point fingers, and instead of looking at it as what it is, and it's simply a reflection of something we're not looking at that is within ourselves. So it ties into, it's a building block of the law of attraction. So whenever we see some sort of a threat outside of ourselves or something that we're perceiving as a threat, it really is a reflection. It's something we are not choosing to look at within ourselves. And so it's basically don't react so strongly to it. Instead, kind of take a step back and ask yourself, why is this person showing up, or this event, this thing that's triggering this harsh of a reaction within me? And I have found this to be one of the most powerful of the warrior rules, because every time I find myself, because it happens to me still, where my instant reaction, if somebody says something I don't like, or somebody does something I don't like, or an event happens, I think it's honestly very human for us to get caught up in our feelings, react to it, and have an emotional reaction to it. But being a spiritual warrior means, wait a minute, this wouldn't be showing up if it wasn't meant to teach me something that I'm holding within me that I'm not seeing. And that's why I say honor it as your greatest teacher, because if this thing, this person, this event didn't happen, as bad as it might feel in that moment, it really is there to free you and liberate you in a way of something that you wouldn't have seen before.
So let's make an actual real world example. We'll make one up. Obviously, this isn't something that's really going on. Well, actually, it could be going on somewhere for all I know. But for the purpose of discussion, we're going to pretend that this is going on. Just give us an example of how this could actually be playing out.
I mean, for me personally, I'm going to just put it in a very general term when it comes to my personal relationships with people, especially for some reason around my birthday. I want to say for the last 4 years, there have been disruptions in my interpersonal relationships with friends. And lots of different scenarios have played out. So I don't want to make this a personal with any one person, but it's been a repeating thing where, and it's all been around boundaries. And I actually posted this on my Facebook website. It was a big insight that I came to, that I had a really hard time drawing personal boundaries. And this is something me and Louis have discussed on the show, which is me being a people pleaser. And I know there are a lot of other people that are caught in this trap where we will put other people's needs and desires above our own, and we become very resentful and angry about it. And so for me, this was an ongoing theme, and it kept manifesting in me feeling taken advantage of, and me feeling like people were basically being abusive with me. And it was making me angry, because these are people that I found that were in my closest circle. They were very close that I considered very close friends. And so it was very painful to go through until all of a sudden I went, wait a minute, this keeps happening and it keeps happening in a certain way. So let me take a look at this theme and start working on whatever it is I'm holding inside of me that keeps attracting this external circumstance to keep presenting itself. And I can honestly say at 47, I don't want to jinx it.
Jinx it. Wait a minute.
I'm just kidding. I really do feel liberated from this because I have found this year, I don't know if it's because of the pandemic or what's going on, my people pleasing is at zero. If I don't want to do it, say it or be it, it's not happening. And this is a big step for me. I've always been the person, I'm going to be the friend, I'm going to be the person there that's going to listen, do things that I don't want to do. And I have come to the conclusion that doesn't help anybody. It just makes me resentful and angry. So I think for me, that's the biggest example that I can currently give personally for how I've been applying this. And it's been my greatest teacher because I can't tell you what it feels like at 47 to say, wow, this year I really was not running around people pleasing. I was very honest. And I have to, it was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable to say no a lot to people because I was always the yes person. And just to say, no, I don't want to do that, or no, that doesn't work for me. And that is not something at all that I'm used to doing. So it was uncomfortable. I'm not saying that this is an easy principle to apply. That's why I call them, warrior, because it does take some practice, especially when things are a little bit more ingrained. And this is a behavior I've been doing since I was a child. People please, people please.
So the warrior rule in this case was about taking you out of what I call a familiar zone, because it was very familiar.
Very familiar.
Years.
And I was seeing how destructive it was. So that's why I call it the enemy. And it's because it's a repeating pattern. And I kept allowing myself to displace my anger, my resentment on the person, the circumstance. And I wasn't looking at how I was attracting these situations to keep presenting themselves. So when you do see that and you allow it to be your greatest teacher, it's very liberating.
That's a great thing. Excellent.
Yes.
All right. Now, Louis, as you sit there in your beautiful new virtual home, what do you think of this warrior rule?
I just wanted to say that, Amy, when you get to 53, you start wanting to say, hey, listeners, I'm so happy to have you on the show and that you're listening and you're the best people on earth. You get to start wanting to please people again because you want to.
53, that was very specific. Are you 53?
Yep.
You are not. What? Really? I would have never guessed that. Okay, well, I'm coming up on 47.
Or is it 54? I can't remember.
Well, I'm starting to lose track.
Well, the way I look at it is I just celebrated the 34th anniversary of my 30th birthday. So, add it up all you want to.
All right.
But what you're pointing to is a very important concept and very important skill to learn. I mean, you were describing it and applying it in terms of being a people person, a people pleaser. But really, this is, again, it's a form of boundaries. You identified it that way. That's been a topic, by the way, for the last couple of weeks here on the show. Boundaries has been really popping up all over the place.
Why does that not surprise me?
Yeah, well, law of attraction, right? That's what the show's about. But the fact is that it's also, what you're really talking about is, who are you responsible for?
Right.
I mean, yes, the one way to look at it is you're not responsible for pleasing anybody else, but you are responsible to yourself.
That's right.
And really, you're only responsible to yourself. Now,
that's right.
No, Walt, I want you to be happy. You've got to be happy.
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Part of the people
you know what I would say in that circumstance. Somebody said that to me. Well, that's your problem.
I think part of the people pleasing thing too, it becomes an addictive. You're looking for validation through others. And as I've matured and tapped more into my spirituality, and I'm getting that self-validation, self-love, even if validation is probably the wrong word. But as I am coming more to terms with who I am, the good and, the little things that make me quirky, and I'm no longer badgering myself over those things. Yes, I'm looking to evolve and improve. but I'm not trying to be something that I'm not, and I'm not asking anyone else to be that either. There is that, it's the release of that need for someone outside of me. I'm saying, yes, I'll do that for you, even though I don't want to. And I'm doing it to put a smile on their face, even though it's making me unhappy. It's a big one. And I think a lot of people run around doing this, and then they end up getting resentful and angry at each other. And it's like, just be honest with where you're at and what you want to do. It's so much simpler.
It's simpler.
It gets to the place, Amy, where you don't please any other people anymore, and that's easy. But then you start taking the cat and nine tails to your own back,
right? Yeah.
And then that has to learn to stop as well. So there's kind of levels to the whole process of growing to spiritual maturity, as they would have used those words in the old days. And it's a bit of a journey. It's fun.
Yes.
Well, plus also we despite the fact that we kind of lay out these new rules for ourselves and adopt new behaviors in terms of how we're interacting with this world that we're in, we're also interacting with other people. Yeah. And other people have their own expectations, their own beliefs, and so forth. And that just kind of muddies the water. I mean, if we don't really give a damn about anybody else, then that's one thing. But most of us have some sort of affection for some other people in the world.
Absolutely.
And that's where complications come into it. It's
yes.
part of being alive.
Not necessarily. No.
I mean, I love giving. I love having that symbiotic relationship. What I don't like is when it starts becoming, where I feel like it starts becoming parasitic, meaning there's the giver and then there's the taker. And I found myself in a lot of situations where I felt like I was over giving and people were taking from me, but I was the one offering that up. I was the one actually over giving out of wanting to be a people pleaser, because I, again, had this kind of fixation or addiction to that feeling that I was getting. I was the one causing it. And it was coming to grips with, I needed some of these situations to happen so that I could see that within myself, or it was just going to keep happening. And it was being able to take that step back. And I always tell others, when you see patterns repeat outside of you, especially, that's when you really, that reflection keeps happening. Please pay attention to it. Mm-hmm. It's there for a reason. It's going to show up with a new person, a new situation. And I swear the message comes through louder every time you ignore it. And so some people will be like, oh, this horrible, disaster happened in my life. I want to say there were red flags along the way. I'm not here to blame anybody for tragedies striking or anything like that. But there's always red flags along the journey that if you ignore them, they come through louder and louder until, boom, they smack you upside the head. So pay attention, basically.
They are worth paying attention to. No doubt about that. I'm going to give you an example of something that happened very recently, actually, with somebody I care about, somebody who's fairly close to me. And I'm going to be curious to see what Louis in particular, what his reaction is, how he would respond in this situation. Now, this person was trying to explain something to me, and what they're trying to explain was they wanted help with something. And as he was explaining it to me, he was pointing over there and saying, "Would you please?" He was struggling to get the words. He couldn't remember what it was he was trying to say, but he wanted something over there. So I started looking over there, and he got all upset because I looked over there. Like that, don't do that. You're distracting me when you do that. Look at me. Otherwise, how do I know that I have your attention? Well, of course, he was the one who had pointed over there, but nevertheless, that was his viewpoint, right? And I didn't take it seriously in the sense of I was in any way deeply offended by it, and I wasn't trying to offend him or anything. It was just one of those things that, okay, well, he's got something going on there. That's fine. But by the same token, it's somebody who's important to me. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't want to support a behavior that I thought was counterproductive to his own health, and I certainly wasn't going to support something that was counterproductive to my own interests. But I still had a sympathy for him, and that's the part I'm curious about. What what your viewpoint is on this, Louis, because I mean, it's pretty clearly something you don't say, well, that's my fault for looking in the direction you pointed at because you were pointing there. It's more along the lines of, this is somebody I care about who's kind of stumbling along, and I want to give them support in some way.
So, Walt, what you stumbled upon was somebody's insecurity.
Yeah.
So you were highly aware of it. So what I would do is I would gently probe into it. So why were you concerned about me looking over there? Because once you get to the reasoning or the logic behind it all unravels, and it becomes easier for the person to kind of comprehend and understand. But there's certain circumstances you just can't do that in. And you're not necessarily their therapist and all the rest of it, but
right.
because of who I am, I would have jumped all over that. It's just, I would be so intrigued, and I would just be digging into it and unraveling it, not only for them but for me as well. Because usually, if it was somebody I knew well, I would understand instantly why they were doing that. There wouldn't be that kind of confusion as to why they were doing it. So, if there was, I would be all over it. I don't know. It's really individual such circumstances. And like I was in the sauna the other day. I'm back in the sauna. Yeah.
We know you've been looking forward to that
one. Big time. A lot of things are starting to happen again.
Yes.
Post-COVID. I'd like to say post-COVID, but there's still a lot of restrictions out there. And, I just had these most amazing conversations with individuals, again, completely random new individuals, and watching them unravel and having the ideas in their head spark out and having new ones come to me as well. It was just fantastic. I could go into them in a lot of depth, but it's, we've been through a lot of that stuff on this show, and most of us are up to speed with a lot of it. So, but it's the unique individuals and having them face and look at new ideas, and it was just really interesting to watch them grasp one concept and then move to another, and then really be interested. There's this desperate thirst out there for a lot of people for this kind of information, and I don't think even the show or us who have already got a lot of it and all the rest of it appreciate how much value we can be to so many different people.
Yes.
And yeah, there's just so many things going on in my life. I don't know where to even begin or end, but
well, you just in one sentence described my life, so I totally understand and appreciate it.
It's just satisfying to watch the penny drop, as they say.
Yes.
Watch the light bulbs go on, and having fun with the whole process, and not pushing and pulling them, not demanding that they understand or don't understand, or get it or don't get it. But I've got that strong vibration that I get the right people at the right time.
Yes.
It just happens. It just happens, and I'm very comfortable with that, and I don't have any issues. So I just enjoy watching it happen and come and play with it.
Me and my friends really enjoy swapping stories. All of us that are really practicing the law of attraction. Because one thing I've learned is basically by hearing one of my friend's stories, it does nothing but revalidate what I already know, which strengthens the belief systems even deeper. So even though that thing didn't happen to me, it feels like it did because it's from one of my friends. And so we're really used to kind of swapping these stories. I have a friend of mine right now, I won't name her, but she had a lot of different things happening that needed to fall into place. A lot of different things were not going right, okay, or what we would call right. Instead of her freaking out, she took the time, started going on walks, and within, I want to say it was a 2 or 3 week period, everything that she needed that was a problem before, everything just snapped into place magically. And I had such a fun time pointing that out to her to say, hey, listen, pat yourself on the back. You did that. Instead of you sitting there stressing out, talking about your problems, you chose to go out into nature, to go for walks, and to really keep this positive attitude. And she even kind of had a dip in her energy afterwards and was like, it almost feels like a depression. And I told her it's really what it is that you held your vibration so high during that kind of, I want to say, emergency situation, that now that everything's snapped into place, it's the way you label it. You're not depressed, you're just mentally tired, and now you can relax, is all it is. And right?
When you put that kind of effort in, because early on when you're trying to learn a new skill, and that's what we're talking about here is a new skill, it does take some effort. I mean, you're trying to overcome an old behavior pattern and replace it with a new one.
And she had some big pieces that needed to fall into place for her. And so, yes, the mental kind of energy it almost takes to keep yourself in that elevated state and to not be focusing it in the wrong direction. It does. And then when it all does snap into place, it's almost like, whoo, I think I need like a spiritual nap over here for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Little time out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's perfectly natural to feel that way, especially when it's some big things that you're waiting on.
No doubt about it. I do like the idea though of going inside and basically taking inventory, if you will, because that's really what your warrior rule is all about, is taking inventory of what's going on in your life that you perhaps for whatever reason, one reason or another, you haven't really owned up to, you haven't really taken ownership of. And then taking ownership of it, and then letting go of all the blame and all the stuff like that you can attach to it.
This can be really hard for people, like they got done wrong by somebody, a friend outside of them, a family member or something. And they're like, what do you mean? Like that this, I caused this, and they're not understanding. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that there aren't things happening outside of you that you don't like. You're only intersecting with those things because you are holding something inside of you that keeps that is a match to that, or you would not be seeing it. You wouldn't be converging with it. That's all it means. So it doesn't mean this person, did something wrong to you and like you deserved it because you were thinking about that thing happening. It's an energetic thing. You lined up with something energetically that you need to learn from. So I do want to encourage people with the warrior rules, get a notebook and write down what are some things that are happening in your life right now that you do not like. And you got to kind of dig deep, and you're not going to come up with all the answers today. But what could the message, what is the teaching moment for you that you can find in that? Because really, when I take a look at anything that's happening and is repeating, it kind of comes to me almost very quickly what message is being sent to me. And some of them can take a little bit of thinking, but it's that you're now, instead of focusing on this person or this event, which is what we tend to do, we focus externally. You're taking all of that energy and now you're placing it on yourself and saying, okay, what's going on inside of me that keeps this happening? And it really is, it's a wonderful way of working some of the kinks out, I'll call them.
Part of this too is about recognizing the difference between your stuff and other people's stuff.
Yes.
And I'll give you an example that actually, in one way, it kind of blurs the boundaries, but another way, it clarifies the boundaries. But you'll understand why I'm saying that in a moment. It happened today, actually. I had to go out on an errand to a customer's house for the gardening business, put down a tarp for the mulch people to drop some mulch onto. And on my way back, I came up to a stop sign. And now I need to set the scene for you. It's a sort of a suburban area. To the right, well, there's the road straight ahead. To the right of the road, there is a gray fence, like a picket fence kind of thing, but it's gray and it's in the shade. So it's a very darkened area. And directly in front of me, it's very bright. Off to the left, it's kind of normal. Okay. So I pull up to the stop sign and I look both directions. Don't really see anything. There's a car coming the other way. He's coming to a stop. So I start to go. And as I'm going through the intersection, to my right, there's a gray car sitting there blaring his horn at me. I'm thinking, where on earth did he come from? So I played it back in my mind and I realized gray background, gray car. He had tinted windows, camouflage. He was basically buried in the background. I couldn't see him. So I thought about it some more. I said, well, I knew I could see to the right of that background. So if there was a car coming up, I would have at least seen that motion. So he was sitting there for a while. So I kept thinking about it, and I realized this is kind of a setup. I mean, yeah, I missed him. I didn't see him. Well, fortunately, I completely did miss him. Otherwise, it would not have been a good thing. But, we just kind of, had a little incident and nobody got hurt. So it was all right from that perspective. But, he was in the shade. I couldn't really see that he was there. And he was sitting there for a while because I came to a complete stop. I'm not like most people who go to a stop sign that kind of, whiz through it after slowing down to 10 miles an hour. I mean, I actually stopped. That's my normal way of doing it. And that's what I did in this case. So he had to have been sitting there for like a good 15, 20 seconds. And that's when I realized it was a setup because he had been stopped. I had stopped. I hadn't seen anybody. I started to go and he got upset. Well, that's a setup. I don't know what was going on in his head, but that was a setup. So you have basically two things going on there. On the one hand, I was dealing with the fact that he was blurring into the background. I couldn't even see him in the background. He wasn't moving. His car and his tinted windows, basically blended right in. And he was, or she, I don't even know who it was. The front window was tinted. I mean, I couldn't even see who the driver was. Whoever it was basically sitting there for the longest time and then getting upset when he didn't go or she didn't go and I went anyway. Now, I could have turned that around and said, oh, well, who is this person anyway? I could have gotten all upset about it, I didn't do that at all. I said, oh, well, excuse me, sorry. What was that? What just happened? Will somebody please explain it to me? But as you were describing to me the whole thing about internalization, I realized there were a number of ways I could have internalized that one. And I could have internalized it in terms of if I were a people pleaser, maybe I should have just stopped and apologized, or maybe I should have done something to put that person at ease. I could have gone in that direction. There are a lot of ways you can go on this. All kinds of possibilities. Yes.
Oh, that's a good one.
Staggers the imagination. The different things you could do. I guess I mean bring that whole example up because it's a great example of muddy water. We like to think about stuff being very clear about.
Yes.
We like to tell stories where the examples are clear, but it isn't always clear.
No.
So we have to deal with the unclear situations too.
Yes.
You know why you get those? Trains going in different directions.
Different directions,
yeah.
Yes.
And then we're storytellers. I'll even catch myself sometimes just something has happened and I start thinking or talking about it and I call it storytelling. I'm projecting. I don't really know what I'm saying. Usually it's towards the negative, unfortunately, that when my mind starts doing that, I'm not filling it in with a rosy, happy story. I usually start filling in. If I'm wondering about something, I will start, and I call it storytelling, and I catch myself when I do it because it's me saying to myself, you don't know that's what's actually happening. Just stop it. If you're going to storytell, at least make it a happy story.
Okay, so basically do a little rewriting.
Yeah, I have to edit because my mind, and I freely admit this, especially for those that are really new to the law of attraction, I think it can become very overwhelming when they hear, what they're hearing is, thoughts make things. And if I don't think a certain way all the time, then bad things are going to keep happening to me. That isn't how it works. I call it, how long do you wallow in the lower frequencies? There's contrast. Me and Louie have talked about that. You've got to experience the full spectrum of human emotion. If you want to go to the highest highs, you've got to be able to go down to the lowest lows. But how long do you stay in the low? That's where I call it, you're suffering and you're wallowing, because now you get a momentum going that it makes it very hard actually to get out of it. So when I start storytelling, I'm like, be careful, because now you are projecting something that you don't know, and it can start creating a momentum going in a direction that you don't want it. You can feel it. It's in the pit of your stomach. Now you're getting angry at things that you don't even know have happened. Mm-hmm. And I freely admit that when my mind is a very powerful thing, I'm a creator, I'm a writer. I just start writing scripts in my head. And when I don't like the way that they feel, I know to kind of like rewrite that.
You pointed to something that made me realize for a moment there that kind of in the context of what I was just talking about, the story I just told, we live in a world where we are just surrounded and included in this circle of conscious creators or unconscious creators. We're all creators one way or another, consciously or unconsciously. And we're dealing with all these other creators, and we're experiencing what it's like to deal with a whole bunch of creators all in the same space. And that's what life is about, really. That's a big portion of life right there, is you're dealing with a whole bunch of different creators with different views, different trains going in different directions and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's this amazing soup where everything is just kind of stirring together. And the more densely populated your area is, the more soupy it is.
It's true.
So
when you get too caught up in judging or looking at someone else's train track, you are more prone to colliding with that energy. Mm-hmm. So be very careful about that too. You know, when you're looking at something that you don't like, the longer you stare at it, the more chance you have of intersecting with it.
Yeah, and that's
so
what
Abrams says. One person in alignment is more powerful than millions who aren't. So in London, you need to be 10 times more powerful.
This is true.
Is it because it's always raining there in London? No,
or 10 times more attentive, one or the other.
There's 10 million people in London.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a big city.
In one little area.
Yeah.
I went to Paris several years ago with two of my best friends. We had an amazing time, but it was really gloomy almost the entire time we were there.
Oh my.
Paris can be like that.
Yep. Yes. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful city, though. We had a fabulous time.
But recently we've had like 2 weeks of rain, and it's quite unusual, really. We're not that used to this.
That can happen here in Atlanta.
It starts getting depressing.
It does. It's interesting how the weather
I can handle the first week. I can handle the second week, but
going into this third week, you're like,
thinking,
okay,
some
sun,
please.
Yeah. It's interesting how the weather does affect our mood that way.
Oh, sure. Oh yeah, hugely.
I'm usually pretty immune to it to a large degree. You know, if it's cold or it's winter, I'll just take a blanket and sit around the fire and read a book.
Oh, I love that. That's my favorite. That is my favorite.
So I can weather the storms, but sometimes when it goes on for long periods, even South Africa, the sun would just go on for months and months, and everything would get dry and dead, and earth was cracking, and it's just everything, all the grass is all brown. You just I really want rain now. Want rain. And it can, if you want to think of something that can really, really bother you, it's no contrast. I remember my mom saying, she was British, living in South Africa when I was young, and she used to say, "You so miss the English contrast of the seasons."
Yeah.
Because in South Africa, it's pretty much the same all year.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how it was in South Florida. It was just hot and really hot. And I love really Atlanta because we do get the change of seasons, and it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And, the contrast really helps to keep things more exciting and different and alive and all the rest of it.
No doubt about it. Actually, is there more to explore with the warrior rule? If not, there was something else I wanted to bring up.
No, that's pretty much it. I put a link to the blog, and there's a challenge that they can do for themselves. So I would really invite anybody that's having any sort of conflict outside of them to write it down and really take a look at what is it trying to teach you.
All right. Yeah, and Neo's tuned in. He says it's 95 in Tampa. He's headed for
sounds about right.
There you go.
I'm always confused when you say 95. Cook an egg at that temperature in degrees Celsius.
No doubt about it. Yeah, 95 Celsius, that would be really painful. Yes, I know. We in the United States are different from everybody else around the world, but they, deal with it.
Walt, I just wanted to pick up on something you said earlier before you went on.
Sure.
You were talking about boundaries.
Yeah.
And my daughter, my younger one, is very over enthusiastic. She's like really bursting with energy, and she's jumping up and down and doing things. And my older daughter, Isabel, was trying to curtail her.
As an older sister is wont to do.
And I was sitting there suggesting to Isabel that she just lets that incredible energy flow straight through her instead of getting stuck. So when we're talking about boundaries, she was trying to create a boundary and push Eloise away. What I was suggesting with her is have no boundaries so that it just goes straight through. And I think that is a lesson that I'm learning more and more at the moment, especially with my younger daughter, is to let these waves of energy go through me, because they really are quite painfully active in comparison to this old 54-year-old man, or 3, I can't remember. So, it's something that I find very, very valuable skill is to remove all your boundaries and to let things flow through you. It's of great value.
Yes.
It's definitely an advanced skill. It's not something I would recommend early on in the process of becoming a conscious creator, but it is certainly where we want to get to. We want to, not so much, I wouldn't even describe it as letting boundaries down. I think I would describe it as letting my acceptance grow. Because it's really not about boundaries so much as it is about acceptance. It's about the high vibe. Boundaries are often a necessary middle vibration thing to deal with lower vibration stuff. But you're absolutely right when you say that our goal is to get to the point where the lower vibration stuff just isn't important. So we don't have to worry about whether there's a boundary there or not. It just,
right.
Okay, well, sure, whatever. Have fun. I'm not vibrating there.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that's where I'm now aiming, because now I'm in the spot I'm in right now. Trying to go from being a people pleaser to that, they're eons apart from each other. So it's just kind of moving it along. Maybe by the time I'm your age, Louie.
It's only a few years.
Oh, wise sage.
You will soon be there.
Oh.
Neophyte.
The guru has spoken.
I love it. I love
Right.
So I wanted to bring in something that, speaking of Abraham Hicks said.
Yes.
This is actually from their daily mailing list that they send out. And it's actually a series of messages from the various workshops and webinars and so forth that they have done. And it's from their books. That it's kind of like on a 2-year cycle. You can pretty much count on whatever came out 2 years ago is going to come out today, and it's going to come out 2 years from now. But still, I keep getting it every day, even though I keep seeing the same things over and over again that I've seen the last 6 years, because it's good stuff. This one I've seen before. I've talked about it before, and I'm curious to know what your take is on it, Louie. Amy and I were talking about it before the show. I won't read the whole thing like I did Amy before the show. I'll just read the first paragraph because that's got the key piece in it. It says, there is thought, and there is thought form, and there is manifestation. Manifestation is always in the eye of the beholder, so this time-space reality that everyone is perceiving is nothing more than vibrational interpretation. So that's the paragraph. And the point of discussion is thought and thought form. And I'm curious to know what your take is on what's the distinction, what's the differentiation between thought and thought form.
It's fascinating. I've never thought about that before. So the way I would break it down at the moment would be I'd replace the word thought with maybe idea. And when you focus on the idea for more than 14 seconds, then it becomes an active thought form. I don't know. That's just something I'm kind of toying with at the moment.
I think you're on a good track. Yeah. I think it's generally the right idea. The way I was distinguishing between them is kind of similar, but certainly very comparable to what you're talking about there. I was thinking of the thought as being just that, the thought, and the thought form being a structure within which we put the thought. It's a way of creating a drawing to fit the thought into. And the thought form is basically driven by what the original thought was, but it becomes a way that the thought starts to harden, so to speak, into reality. So very similar to what you had.
Which could fit into what I was saying as well, which is, if you think about it often, and your structure would be the different ways you kind of think of something. So if you want a house, you don't only think of the bathroom or the toilet seat, you think of the kitchen and the lounge.
Unless you only want a house with a bathroom and a toilet seat. That's all you want, it's fine. But personally, I like to have a kitchen too.
There is that.
I'm going to put more money in the kitchen than in the bathroom. That's just me. But yeah, I had the same reaction. That's a really interesting way of describing something. Once again, I have to admire Esther Hicks for the way she uses her vocabulary to express what thought forms, because there's another way that the word thought form gets used.
You admire Abram?
No, actually, I admire Esther.
Oh, okay. So this is something Esther said, not Abram.
Well, it's something that Abraham says, but Esther's the translator.
Right.
No, but Esther is an empty vehicle who doesn't even remember what it said during the
No, she doesn't remember it, but she's still doing the translation.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're talking about from that perspective. Yes.
Right. Yeah. She's taking that block of thought and she's turning it into verb.
And using her understanding of the English language to
exactly.
convert it. Right.
Yeah.
I love the way she has explained channeling. I know. It's made all the difference. It's amazing because, when I first started listening to her or to Abraham, I didn't understand, okay, what is the difference here? She's the translator. And the way that she would explain, when Esther would come back, was basically there's just this download of energetic information coming through her, and she's using her own language to translate it, basically. And it made so much sense to me because her brain is the one processing the information that's coming in. And so that's when I hear, there are definitely certain individuals who channel like the stream. I really have enjoyed Bashar over the years. There's just certain people that do it, and I get so much out of it when I listen to them. But by far, Abraham Hicks is my favorite. Just the way they continue to bring this information and present it in new ways to kind of keep molding and shaping it amazes me.
By the way,
it's the same exact information. I mean, how many videos can you make?
35 years, or it's probably about 40 now.
Unbelievable.
Of almost identical information, just talked about in slightly different circumstances.
Yes.
You just gave me a great segue, by the way, because David Strickle, the streamer David, is going to be on the show tomorrow.
Yay!
He's a special guest. Yeah, he's coming back for a visit. So anybody who's listening in, especially to the podcast, who want to have their question asked for the stream to answer on the show, by all means, use the app.
I may. I have my upcoming birthday. So
Absolutely.
I think I'll treat myself to that.
Send it in. We'll ask the stream. The stream loves the questions that we give them. I mean, that's one of the reasons David keeps coming back, because he says, you guys
so is he not doing every Tuesday anymore?
No, he hasn't been doing it on a regular basis since December, I think it is.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, Dean McMurray is now doing Tuesdays with me, and looking to add a third person there, but haven't quite found the right fit just yet. But for tomorrow, it's going to be 3 with Dave Strickle. And
fantastic! I will definitely tune into that.
Yeah. So absolutely.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, absolutely. Send in your question. Amy, you send me the question, and any listener who wants a question included, send it in. Use the LOA Today app. Send it to my email, walt@loatoday.net. Send it by Facebook. Send it in. Whatever way you send it in.
I definitely will. Every year, just to add this into the mix, because my birthday is coming up. This is another neat little thing that I can just tell our viewers about that I do. Every year for my birthday, I write what's called a master map. And I write out physical, so for my body, spiritual, financial, relationships, creative. And those are the 5 categories that I write. And then I've been doing this since I was like 20 or 21.
Wow.
And I write I write it in the present tense as if it has already happened. What will I have come to fruition in my 47th year? So I wrote that when I was 46. And then I roll it up like a little scroll. And I keep it in my meditation room. And then on my birthday, I will open that and I will see how many of these things I actually manifested. One thing that I learned is to keep it more general. And I know Abraham talks about this a lot. So when I was younger, I would be very specific. And when I would look at the master map, I'd be like, well, this didn't quite happen this way. And it would, I don't want to say annoy me, but I would feel like, I didn't really get it. But I would say probably about 10 years ago, I started going more general, meaning instead of saying how much money I wanted, it was more of the feeling. I want to feel abundance and be in a new home, or I want this type of a thing. And I would have this very general concept of like with my body, where my health is going to be. And every year I am absolutely amazed that all of those things come true. And so it's a really fun, my birthday, I love celebrations, and who doesn't like a good party? But it is a very sacred time for me. And like my birthday is on the 26th, so it's 2 days away. And I get into this zone every day beforehand of this kind of preparation of greeting this next chapter in my life and setting the intention of what do I want to create? Because people, we have that much control. What do you want to create? And looking at your life in that way, as opposed to just this random kind of haphazard. I mean, those things can be fun too. I'm not saying that we're trying to, plan and map everything out, but I think it's nice to have some sense of what direction are you trying, where are you intending to go?
And by the way, happy birthday in 2 days. And
Thank
since
you.
we're doing happy birthday, I also got to throw out.
Birthday.
I got to throw out another one too. My uncle this coming Sunday is turning 105, so I got to throw out a happy birthday to George. Yeah,
that is quite the
young.
accomplishment. I have got to say. Me and my husband have rented a tree house up in Blue Ridge Mountains. It's absolutely beautiful. So we're just going to go up there and escape for 3 days. I'm really looking forward to just getting out of the city and going into nature and getting that time with him. So
really fabulous. That's great.
Yes.
I love those treehouse places.
It is the most gorgeous, because the inside looks like something out of an interior design magazine. So it's a strange combo. As an artist, I couldn't help it. When I found it, I was like, wow, this is absolutely gorgeous. So we're very excited to go stay in it.
Really good. That's a nice way to celebrate a birthday.
Absolutely.
That's I like that. Really good. And I think we were interrupting something you were going to throw in there, Louis. I don't know if you even remember what it was, but if you do, here's an opening.
I do. Just briefly going back to Abraham Hicks's channeling. They were once asked by a Spanish guy, "Can you talk, in Spanish?" I said, "Sorry, I can't, because Esther only understands English."
Right.
and we use her to translate. And then. They were saying, well, can't you translate through somebody who's Spanish? And Abrams saying, no, there's loads of other people who are mediums in Spanish. Listen to them. We're all source energy. Go for it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. That's what's so cool about it too. I mean, that's one of the things that I learned from the time that David Strickle was on the show, interviewing him every week and interviewing the stream every week, was that when you get a channeled message coming through different people, there's always a different flavoring involved.
Yes.
They're all basically passing along the same message, because the message doesn't really change from the source energy. It's always the same message. But the flavoring, the emphasis, the orientation shifts.
Because the language, exactly, the perspective, depending on the person that it's coming through.
And then sometimes you get Louis playing his African drums for it. But that perspective is cool. I mean, it's one of the fun things that was about the stream that I really like, because when you pay attention to what Esther Hicks channels, what she receives, she doesn't even like calling it channeling. She calls it receiving. When you pay attention to the message that she receives, her message is kind of a little bit on the light and happy side.
Yes.
Whereas David Strickle's messages from the stream, there's nothing they won't tackle. Esther will always redirect you to the message that that Abraham wants you to pick up, and the stream does the same thing. But the stream will dive into some stuff that Abraham will just kind of redirect you from. The stream will just go after it directly, and that's just one example. Anytime that you're talking to any person who is channeling source energy, you're going to get that's the kind of variation and flavoring that I'm talking about, because the perceptions and the tastes and the preferences of the person doing the channeling have to color it. I mean, they're the ones doing the translating. How could it not color it? That's the way I look at it. But it also makes it very, very interesting. So tomorrow's going to be a good show to.
Yay!
Yeah, it's going to be really good. So, okay, we got about 10 minutes left. We covered the warrior rule, and we
Yeah.
covered this little bit that Abraham has. I mean, I guess I'm going to kind of throw it open. Louis, let's go to you. I mean, you've been doing the sauna sessions again. Anything interesting coming out of the sauna sessions that might be worthwhile for listeners to hear about?
I decided to bring up COVID.
Okay.
But I wanted to bring it to a very different place. First of all, with no worry, no concern whatsoever. Anybody who's in a sauna is generally not somebody who's overly worried.
True.
You know, they're not necessarily the people that have got any psychological fears or worries that want to stay at home and lock themselves up. So we just had such a great conversation with so many diverse points of view. You know, I just kind of started it off saying there's two ways of protecting yourself. You can either protect yourself outside by using masks and having jabs and disinfectant for your hands, etc., or you can work on your immune system. Or you can do a combination of both. And after that, I just let it fly out. And everybody was coming in at all different angles. And it was just so cool. And I said one of those is far more effective than the other. That's how I started the whole thing. And then the one lady says to me, well, which one is that?
I wonder.
I said, the opening.
I said, you can't work that one out? So that's how it began. And after that, everybody was diving in and people were shaking my hands afterwards. And the lady was telling me her husband's also South African. And, you know, we're just having a lot of fun. And trying, you know, whenever somebody got a little bit too deep about or worried about anything, I was just lifted it up and I was taking it to the level and saying it's all right to be like
That's
that,
great.
and think like that. And, you know, it was just a lot of fun. You know, if you've got enough control and you're not that invested in one way or another, you can really take that conversation and let people see a lot of different concepts. One thing that came out of it was the idea that when people in control get a taste of the power that they can hold over others, they tend to not want to give it up that easily. I was saying I still can't go to Austria and visit my family there. I still can't do this. I still can't do that. Because they were kind of thinking, oh, the lockdowns have finished now and everything's back to fairly normal, but it's not. There's still many things that are restricted. And, you know, I'd really like to be able to do them again. I really would. I want to travel again. And I just wanted to make people understand that once people get a certain level of power, it's not that easy for them to give it up.
It's a true and valid point. Yeah, it really is. I actually, as you were describing that scenario, you know, what you were discussing in the sauna there, I was thinking about the fact that just this past week, here where we live in Connecticut, we have been in semi-lockdown pretty much since the beginning. By which I mean there have been, you know, mask restrictions and you know, a variety of things like that. A number of the states in the United States have lifted mask restrictions entirely over the last couple months. We finally are doing that now. The general rule of thumb is you're supposed to only do it if you're vaccinated, but it's what they call the honor system.
Right.
And so we're just now entering the phase where people are beginning to pull masks off when they're in stores, when they're in public spaces and so forth. And for me, it's been an interesting opportunity to practice raising my vibration for the purpose of helping to support other people's vibration.
Yes.
Because as I was walking through a Walmart today I was picking up some tarps for the business, and I was looking at the people. Now, right now, if I had to kind of take an estimate, I'd say probably 8 out of 10 are still masked.
Okay.
So only a few people have removed masks, despite the fact that Connecticut actually leads the country. We're one of the most vaccinated states in the country. So a lot more people could remove the mask. They're just choosing not to, which is interesting. And so I've been making a conscious effort, and I was doing it today, of making eye contact with everybody I saw, particularly those who were masked, and giving them a smile.
Nice.
And a lot of them weren't willing to look up.
Right.
A lot of them were just, you know, they were just focused on what they're doing. They're looking down. You know, they're not really. But the few that would look up, I would give them a nice smile and a glance and a nod of hello and all that kind of stuff. and you could see their eyes crinkle like they were smiling behind the mask. And I felt, this is
A
good.
nice
This is nice.
experiment. I like that.
Yeah, helping people to raise that fog a little bit. For me, the
Just
fog's been
calm
gone for a long
down.
time.
Yes, because
Yeah.
there is something about to round this off. Everyone being masked up, this level of disconnect in human interaction that has
Mhm.
happened.
Mhm.
And I'm definitely excited that we are, like, Louis was saying, the vaccination is out for those that choose to want to get it. I'm not going to comment on that either way because it is so
We
controversial.
don't want to go into the politics. We'll stay away
No,
from that.
I'm not going there. I understand. I feel like everybody has the right to make their own choices, but I also am excited. We're having friends over for one of our friends' birthday, and we've got plans going on this summer that we couldn't have last summer. And it just feels good. Not that my life was on hold. I used the time in lockdown actually really well, but it really reminded me that as much as I need my alone time for myself, I also need that human interaction. It's so important. That is how I believe humans are created, and we do thrive off of each other. And like you, Walt, I'm trying to spread that optimism to kind of help stabilize, because you can tell there are so many people that are so afraid still.
Oh, yeah.
And fear is the number one thing that is going to make you sick, contract, have a problem with this. So if you can just really try and get rid of that as best you can, and from our perspective, trying to help people, don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. Just be at peace. You're here, and just a smile and what it can do if somebody's responsive to it.
Oh, yeah. I agree. That smile is a powerful thing.
Yeah.
So.
Every time I see the masks, I think of highway robbery and your sick.
I know. It's been really weird for an author who has written a book about a pandemic to be seeing this all going on. It's like I'm living inside my own story. It's quite strange. So for next week, I won't be here because we'll be in the mountains on my birthday.
Mhm.
But warrior rule number 5 is going to be humble, and unforeseen forces will aid every step you take. And we'll dive more into that on, June 7th? I think Monday is June 7th.
Very good. So something to look forward to there.
Yes.
In the meantime, we will obviously wish you a very happy time on your
Thank
birthday
you.
getaway
I'm
into
very
the
much looking
mountains.
forward to it.
I mean, if you're going to go
Actually,
somewhere, you might as well go to the
well-
mountains.
Yes, always.
I have to point out, I'm also going on holiday next week.
Oh, good for you. Yay.
School
Well,
holiday.
I can think of a few people I'll reach out to do the show. And one of them was actually in the audience today. So, Neil, if you're still tuned in, I want to reach out to you, see if you'd like to join.
Walt is coming for you.
Neil wants to meet you guys. So
I would love.
I figure if I can get him to
Great.
sub for you, then that becomes one step closer to actually being on
110%.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Neil, you have.
And you can step into the arena.
That's right. No, you're gonna love Neil. He is an amazing guy. He just had this really super summit over the weekend. He does these summits every month, and he brings in all of these really strong law of attraction people to talk at his summits, and it becomes a very, very high vibe event.
Oh, I would love that.
Had a very, very successful one this past weekend. So yeah, I'll see if I can bring him in next Monday to talk about it and tell people
Perfect.
exactly what
I
it was
actually
like.
know what a summit is now. My brother does a lot of them and how they work online these days. Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah.
I was privileged enough to be the first speaker after Neo at his summit, so I got to actually kind of set the tone of the thing, which was kind of fun. I enjoyed that a lot. But yeah, it was good. It was good stuff. And plus, co-host Dan Mangena was there as well. So we had LOA Today well represented.
Excellent.
So anyway, all right. Well, Louis, I hope you have a great holiday too. I hope you both guys have a great holiday next
Yes,
week.
and you too, Walt. Memorial
Thank
Day
you.
weekend. Yep.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out what we're doing.
To,
no, go ahead.
We're heading down to Devon to
Oh.
do some house hunting.
Fun.
So
Okay.
that is a virtual background. For
Yeah, I was
there.
thinking a little manifestation going on there.
Okay. Yeah, now, does the dream house look anything like what you have in the background there?
Could be.
Could be. He's not saying. Stay tuned and find out.
I have another few pictures I'll bring next time.
You have a few others. Okay. He's going to bring his snaps. All right. That's good. So anyway, all right. Well, guys, have a great week off next week, and I hope you enjoy your stays. And thank you especially to our podcast listeners. We appreciate you so much. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.